From the Gert Boyle studio at OPB, this is Think Out Loud. I'm Dave Miller. For years, reporters and wildland firefighters have asked officials at the U.S. Forest Service if the agency's official gear contained PFAS. These so-called forever chemicals have been linked to numerous health problems, including cancer. The agency did not answer those questions clearly or directly. But now, finally, because of a Freedom of Information request, we know that the agency did, in fact, know about the presence of PFAS in pants used by wildland firefighters as early as 2021. Abe Streep is a reporter at ProPublica. He joins us now to talk about all of this. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing great. When did firefighter groups first start asking the Forest Service about the presence, the possibility of these chemicals in gear that they were given?
So, as early as a former Forest Service official and researcher named George Broyles reached out to ask about the presence of PFAS in gear in 2022.
How did the agency respond?
So at that point, the agency did not respond directly to his inquiries, but he subsequently filed a Freedom of Information Act request for correspondence that showed that officials had been aware as early as the previous year of a PFAS compound being used in a finish in some of the pants.
Right. So what was that we now know because of the production of those documents? What do we know about what was going on behind the scenes in response to those questions?
Well, so what they show is that there's deliberation both about what to do about this, but also about whether and how to inform the workforce, the wildland firefighters who are wearing this gear. And at one point, an official asks if they have a duty to inform wildland firefighters, and they did not for years.
One thing that the Forest Service did do, again, all of this is behind the scenes, and we now know about it because of this request. But they asked the company, one of the companies that was providing gear, in this case pants, about what the company was doing, what was on the surface of those pants. What did they find out?
Yeah, so somebody and people who work in the equipment had reached out to the company and asked if there was a PFAS presence in the pants as in 2021, and they found out that there was, in fact, it was being used in a finish, a finish to deter, substances including oil and gasoline.
What's the idea behind that? I mean, why would PFAS be put in these pants worn by wildland firefighters?
Well, I think it's PFAS compounds have been common until recent years for a long time in protective gear, because of their ability to repel compounds like oil and gasoline. As public awareness of the risks of PFAS have evolved in recent years, and there's been more scrutiny, there's been a broad move to move away from that. And that move has started more quickly among structural or municipal firefighting departments than I should say, acknowledgement of that issue has started earlier within structural municipal firefighting departments than within wildland firefighting.
But I was struck by a quote you got from a professor of textile engineering, chemistry, and science in North Carolina. What did he say about the use of PFAS in wildland firefighting gear?
Yeah, that's a quote from Brian Ormond, who studies these issues at length, and said that if given the choice, that he would prefer to not see PFAS in the gear. I can pull up the precise quote. I'm paraphrasing
Yeah,
for you,
and
but
my recollection is that he'd prefer that, but he also, it seemed like he called into question the utility of it. I mean, I guess that my recollection is that I mean, even setting aside, and this is a huge thing to set aside, the potential health risks of these chemicals, that it seemed like the reason for putting them in, that there is maybe more of a valid reason in a city firefighting department than in wildland firefighting, where you're not going to be having oil and gasoline all over you to begin with.
well, I think a couple of things about that. I think that what he says is from the wildland fighting perspective, I don't see reason to have the PFAS treatments in their gear. Um, they don't really need the oil repellency. It would be a safer option to not have the PFAS treatment. Some might take issue with that because wildland firefighters do come, are in contact with water, and they do use drip torches, which have fuel in them. That said, I think it's indicative of a broad understanding that there are risks within these, within these within gear treated with PFAS, and the industries and fire departments in general are moving very swiftly away from them. And I think that the something to I want to just circle back to is that within wildland firefighters have been research into their health risks and the specific exposures that they face have, by and large, they're catching up, but they haven't been at the same uh, place as within structure firefighters historically. That has changed within recent years. But the agencies that oversee wildland firefighters have often not responded to concerns about health risks due to a lack of research. So the response within the labor advocacy groups and wildland firefighting advocates who I was speaking with, there was frustration that the Forest Service's lack of a clear, transparent, and open response to this when they were asked about it by one of their former employees was indicative of a historical pattern, and one that they found particularly frustrating.
I should say that we had an in-depth conversation not long ago, a few months ago, with a New York Times reporter who's been doing a lot of work on this, in particular, the effects of wildfire smoke on firefighters, and not just the lack of guidance to wear masks, but in some cases, the prohibition on wearing masks for wildland firefighters. What has come from a congressionally required study looking into PFAS in firefighting gear?
Yeah, so that was a study that an inquiry that Congress mandated in 2021, and it found that there is PFAS and this was looking into both structural and wildland firefighting gear. It found in a number of wildland fabrics low levels of PFAS, but in some of them there were high levels of PFAS.
Has the agency said definitively, even to this day, if it is still giving its firefighters gear with PFAS?
So after this story published, the agency subsequently said, the Forest Service said that it was, after that, it was telling telling firefighters not to use pants, Kevlar blend pants, which could have contained this finish that were produced prior to 2023. Furthermore, it said it was directing suppliers to not use, that it would not be using PFAS in its gear moving forward.
Only after your recent article came out.
That's, yes, to the best of my knowledge.
Abe, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Abe Streep is a reporter at ProPublica.